Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Megan, for coming on to our next episode of Poppy's Perspective. It's a series where we're spotlighting certain companies in the space that really deserve recognition, and also people as well. So obviously yourself coming on is a massive privilege. So thank you so, so much.
Great. Well, thanks, Poppy, so much for having me on today. I'm excited to talk about this. This is my absolute favorite topic. I love what I do.
We'll start with obviously Epic Cleantec. I mean, what's the core mission of you guys? I understand the company, I get it, but for people who don't, yeah, what's the core mission of Epic Cleantec and what sort of sets you apart in the space?
So at Epic, what we're trying to do is change the way that people think about water through the lens of on-site water reuse. So globally, buildings use about 14% of our potable water supply. And we're also adding the equivalent of a new New York City approximately monthly for the next 35 plus years.
Wow.
So like huge amount of growth that's happening. All of those new buildings need water. We're already using a lot of potable water. Where is it all coming from?
Yeah.
Water is a finite resource, right? So imagine now we're wasting all of this water for end uses that don't necessarily require potable water. Things like toilet flushing, irrigation, cooling tower makeup. What if instead of using potable water for those end uses, we could take wastewater right from the source, from a building, treat it on site, turn it into really high quality, non-potable water for those end uses? Immediately, we're solving a big problem. So we're talking about essentially taking the waste out of wastewater. That's one of our core beliefs is there is no waste in wastewater.
Yeah.
So the three big outputs that we're talking about are clean water. We're also talking about energy in the form of heat recovery from wastewater. And the third output that you can get from wastewater is high quality soil amendments, which come from the organics in wastewater.
Yeah. Amazing. And you kind of spoke to it just, but what's one of the like toughest challenges you think that the industry, and that could be the water industry, it could be energy, it could be climate in a general sense, but what's the toughest challenge you think the industry is facing right now?
Water reuse is where we were at with decentralized energy 15 or so years ago.
Mhm.
So it's on the cusp of broader acceptance, but there's still a lot of work to be done. There's lots of regulatory change happening in the water reuse realm, which is great news, but it does mean that there's a bit of an uphill battle in terms of getting those regulations written correctly and making sure that those who are having to implement them, primarily owners and developers, understand water reuse, the technologies, and what this means long term for their building operations. So those are some of the big challenges and why we like to work really closely with regulatory bodies and with the private sector. But probably like the biggest elephant in the room is the yuck factor that's involved with water reuse. It's still real. There's lots of people who say, no way, I don't want, reuse water. Yeah, just so we have taken it upon ourselves to really try to break down barriers on the yuck factor side. And we've done that in three different big ways. One was we released a treated gray water beer.
It's so cool, I saw it.
Yes, it tastes great. It's been really well received. The second one that we unveiled at South by Southwest this year was a whiskey, which again was made with reused gray water from a luxury high rise. And both of those, again, taste great. People would probably not be caught dead like drinking something that we said, oh, this is recycled water. If you hand them a glass of water, they're going to say no. You hand them a can of beer or a whiskey and they're like, oh, sure, I'll try that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really changing the way that people think about recycled water. It's like, oh, that's actually not gross. Like it doesn't taste weird. There's nothing weird about this. We reuse water all the time. And then the third big way is just using humor. Like at our company, there's no shortage of potty jokes and humor always breaks down barriers.
So moving on is sort of kind of off the back of that, kind of adapting to new ideas and where you see the company going. You know, what does success and growth look like for Epic Cleantec? I mean, I know that you recently raised, congrats. Obviously, you're a bit into that now. Yeah, what does the next growth phase kind of look like?
Yes, thank you. It's been a really awesome journey so far. We've got a long ways to go still, which is fun. I think in the next 12 months here, we should be recycling tens of millions of gallons annually as a company. So that's an exciting, piece of growth in our water recycling portfolio. We are also hoping to expand more in areas that are really touched by water scarcity issues, drought issues. So of course, in California, where many of our installations are already based, we're hoping to expand more there. Texas, where I sit, and there's a lot of issues with drought, that's a big one. Hawaii, Colorado, Florida, tons of places in the US that really could use these types of technologies. So that's what success is going to look like for us in the next couple of years here.
And my next question is kind of a little bit goes in line with that. But obviously, you were saying earlier about your office runs on humor and it runs on everything. What is, when it comes to building a team, obviously you've scaled at Epic Cleantech yourself from project manager all the way up to VP of Ops. I'm assuming you've had sort of a say in hiring before. What qualities or mindset do you look for in people that work at Epic Cleantech? You know, is there like a, I hate saying it, but like a DNA type of thing? Like, what is it? Curiosity? Is it, I don't know, a sustainability background? Yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, we definitely have a common thread running through the company. I think the biggest thing is definitely having some sort of passion around sustainability or water reuse specifically, even better. Not everybody's had exposure to water reuse, and that's fine, but caring about the work that we do is super important because there's always going to be tough days, and we're a small team. So the amount of support that everybody gives everyone else is just critical in those times. Second thing that we look for is like an entrepreneurial spirit. We're again like very small company. That's not to say that we don't look for people who have come from large companies because you can still have that same spirit even if you've only worked at large companies. But we do a lot of stuff that's new and we're constantly experimenting and just pushing ourselves. So we want people who are excited about trying new things and are willing to kind of go out of their comfort zone, I would say. And then, of course, a sense of humor. That's an essential one.
And this takes the tone down a little bit, but you know, what is, and startup worlds are crazy. Scale up startups, those environments are a bit bizarre and there's a lot of challenges, as you said. But what's a failure? It could be personal or professional, but something that taught you the most or taught you a lesson.
So there's one thing that always like immediately comes to mind when this is brought up. And it was something that happened really early in my career. I was working at a global design firm and I was in charge of design coordination for this large project. Mm-hmm. And so I was like deep in the details, as you often are earlier in your career. And there was one area of the site that was like requiring a lot of extra coordination. It was super complicated. And I was sort of procrastinating on it. Like, that is not going to be fun. I'm going to leave it there for a minute. And what ended up happening was we received a claim from the contractor because they had to do rework based on the changes that we needed there. Because I had sat on it for too long.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was a big number, but it was this huge learning moment because I felt really bad. I knew that it was entirely avoidable.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's on me. I just let it sit. So the two big takeaways there were one, details really matter. If you're not the one looking at the details, make sure somebody else is the one looking at the details. And then the second thing is, you know, basically bad news doesn't age well or things don't resolve on their own. So make sure to tackle the hard stuff first because it's not going to get better with time.
And then obviously we've spoken a lot about Epic Cleantech and about your journey, but is there any other companies, and again, fine if not, but climate tech's a booming space, especially at the moment. We've got New York Climate Week coming up. Is there any particular companies that inspire you or a solution or a product or something in the climate tech world that you're like, they're doing well or that's cool?
There is a lot, but I think I would sort of pivot that and say I'm not inspired by like a particular product or company. It's more feeling inspired by the individuals that are pushing these things forward because, you know, as I mentioned, working for a smaller company or a startup can be stressful at times. There's a lot of uphill battles when you're trying to get regulatory work done, when you're trying to introduce new technologies. So it's kind of a shout out to like everybody who's helping with this. It could be owners and developers who are supporting folks through difficult permitting processes and like continue to try to adopt these technologies on the early side. It's regulators who are like stepping outside of their job description to try to push things like this forward. It's operators who are on the back end of these technologies trying to make sure that we can support stuff like this moving forward after implementation. And then, of course, the teams who are doing the design, sales, and marketing. That's everyone along the way making all of these huge changes in climate tech possible.
Well, it takes someone to step forward to actually make a difference, doesn't it? And then when one person acts as that thought leader, everyone will then grasp onto it. And it just takes the few people with the large ideas and the large missions and impacts to be like, this is what I'm doing. Who wants to join me? And that's where you get all the talent. So I completely agree with that. And finally, we're getting to an end. Obviously, you're at Series A now. We spoke about the growth, all of that sort of thing. But if you could give one piece of advice to someone or a company or anybody playing a pivotal role in an early stage startup in the industry, what would it be?
The thing that springs to mind is to keep an open mind. Because you're right, like there's a thought leader aspect to this where you immediately like jump in with somebody that you're thinking, oh, this is a really cool idea. But from one cool idea can spring a lot of other cool ideas. And if you don't have an open mind about that, you can end up missing something that could really be life-changing. So keep an open mind always.
Absolutely, especially in the climate world, it's also doom and gloom half of the time. So you really do want people to keep an open mind and be like, okay, let's actually think about this and let's take it together. And I completely agree. Thank you so much, Megan, for this. I loved it. And I felt like we were both smiling the entire time, which means that it's either you or me or Epic Cleantec, which makes us so happy. All of the above. Thank you so much. And I hope I get to try the beer soon or the whiskey.
Yeah, we'll have to send some over.
Yes, absolutely. It'll be amazing. Well, thank you. And yeah, I'll see you soon.